Hello there. My name is Philipp, and I'm part of this meetup since a long time. Normally, when I do talks, or at least our founding father Ruslan decorated me after the talks with some funny hats, one's with a wizard hat, one's with a captain hat. That was because of the topics of my talks. This one is not such a talk. It's just a little roundup and the view in the caboose where I show some stuff I added to my pocket knife or my Swiss Army knife in the late months. And yeah, who am I? Well, you see me, that's basically what I am. I work in web development since 2 decades. 1.5 decades I work in agencies. Now I do a switch. So basically tomorrow I will start with a new company to work on a product. With some of the nice guys sitting here, I'm very motivated to see the other side of the lawn. And what I show you here is a lot of stuff that was very useful for me during company work, especially working with different APIs, creating APIs, webhooks, and all that stuff. How do we come to that? The topic today is scratches, and not the icky ones, but the stuff you see or maybe have seen right at the bottom of your Jetbrains. It's what you can see here when you have to do something quite fast or you want to use later, like here a randomie. We had that for a contest or a voucher, which we did. Then we can run whatever we have here as many times as we want, just as we need it. One of the attributes of scratches are they are available globally. So not only in this project, but they are available for every project, which can be very handy. And that was told by a colleague that he really likes those, and I was, why? I mean, stubs are great, yeah, and some little snippets, but I mean, let's be honest, randomly is nice, but to write that, you don't need that much time. The only thing is that you have to think about how the fuck is this random thing go again to make really a random number. But all the rest you can do in your sleep when somebody wakes you at 2 a.m. So I thought to myself, are they really useful? And then I thought to myself, can I do more than scripts? And there the story begins, basically, because it was a replacement of a tool XX, because there is a really great tool for doing requests. But there was the pain that I always had to start another tool, and especially because I'm a cheap dude. So I'm not that cheap. I like to spend money for software since I create software myself, but not for each and every little use case. So, and what I'm talking about is Postman, and I don't want to shit talk Postman. Postman is a great tool with a lot of features, and they are all great. But there are some little restrictions, especially if you use them in a team. One of them is the collaboration. You can do collections, which are amazing, but if you want to share them, you have like two collections in the free version. And especially the free, they can only be accessed by other people who also pay or have another account, and you're very limited there. And then it takes time. I think it's still based on Electron, which is also a great framework. But if you have 7 tools working on Electron and you have not a shiny apple fruit basket, but you want to stay by principle or by the deepness of your heart on Linux, then it can be a little chat engine starts in your laptop. So I asked myself, if I want to do something really quick, I don't want to fire up another application. So I tried out the requests, which you can do in the scratches too. And there I want to show you the basics that works there and maybe some other stuff that works there too, which I think are pretty great. The first thing is how we do such a thing, how we do a request. I have here a basic Laravel application. With basic, I really mean basic. I installed it yesterday in the night and did some endpoints. That's basically everything there is. It does not do much. To be quite frank, it doesn't do anything but this 5 or 6 endpoints. But I have a basic endpoint, and if I want to use the class, I have always these 3 hashes, which mark a new request. Then I have the verb. Then I have the the address, basically, API, and it was basic. Then I have the headers, and as we know, if we work with Laravel, mostly it really likes to get to know that it's application JSON, and otherwise it will return you some HTML stuff, and then we can try it out. And tada! It indeed returns success 1. That success true. That is not a great thing, but it is really fast written. It is inside my IDE, and I can customize it as I want. And what's also quite neat, I think, is that every response you have cached inside here. For a little object with success true, we can discuss if that's really useful. But if you work with a new API, or as I was forced to work with HubSpot a lot, which is customized in his data, then that could be really great to also have a little history and watch all the JSON feedbacks or manipulate your params and so on and see what came out from that. Then the second part is, I think, payload. Yeah, exactly. Let's do the same thing and acquire a token. You see the second endpoint I created is a post road with bearer, and I know the naming is not nearly or not even on the same level as was presented by Clément. That's not cruddy, I know, but it's for the sake of demonstration. So it wants a password of no to get the bearer with the volume. So we do the same thing. Since I'm lazy, I copy that, and let's put it in here. The route was bearer, and we had a post. Now we have a payload, and the payload we have, of course, to tell what do we want to send. So we say the content type, as we would do otherwise too. Maybe that would be automatic in Postman. I know here we can specify it, and we can specify it in Postman also. And there I start typing JSON. Maybe I have to delete that. Add payload. Yeah, we get that. And what did we want here? We wanted a password. And remember, it's not JavaScript, it is real JSON, so I have to mind the double quotes and not the single quotes. And it's also not PHP, my boys. This one won't work. It has to be valid JSON for a proper response or for a proper payload. So if I send here something and test it out, it will most probably say na. And I also see here all the information I need. In addition, I can also see the request that was created, which in this case is what we would expect with some additional encoding from Jetbrains client itself and the user agent, which is also generated. But I have here my answer so far. And did I enter a wrong password? Yeah, the secret is no. So let's try no. No. And no big surprise, we got the password. No, that's what I sent. Let's see here. I hit the wrong button. If I hit the little boy and the top, I fire all the requests, which is a great thing, not for presentation if I want to do something else, but if you need it, you can really create a whole armada and save all the answers or all the responses directly, and you can always see those here in the list and see if they worked. So, but now we only want this, and I got the bearer token. Great. README, what is the next? Collections, collaborations, variables, and environments. Okay, we were standing at I want to be lazy. And this one is not lazy. I've written twice my base URL, and that sucks. So I can say I want to have an environment. So let's go to a new environment, and it opens again a JSON file, and that is defined by the environment itself. I can have multiple here, and all the params I want to define there. I can define whatever data I see fit or I need for this case. So let's say here I want just the base URL, and there I go and grab my base URL, could also put it in here. And here I can go and say, double quotes, base URL. Of course, it would be wise to select that environment here. Give it a name we can remember, meetup dash dash, and that should still work. For the matter of the base URL, that may be quite obsolete. I mean, of course, I can save 1 or 2 signs, but again, I worked a lot with HubSpot, and I worked a lot with different clients. So each HubSpot instance has another API token. So if I have the same API over and over and work for different customers, it's quite handy to have all the customers saved here and have the same data written into the environment file, which then can be switched and checked against all the different accounts if I need data or if I have to check some new stuff. There are private environments and there are also public environments. And here again, to be frank, I haven't really digged out what's the big difference. I mean, it's in the name basically, but strangely enough, for some quite private stuff, I need to have a public file and not a private file. We will come to that later, which is a little bit confusing to me. The more important thing about that to know is if I create one out of a request file, it will be always written in the same directory. The cool thing is, if I have my private environment, which we just created here, and I move it upwards, do that, it still works. So I organized my old stuff for the company with a lot of different directories. This one is just one, but in the other one I had customer-based or service-based, depending on the needs of mine. And I had overall client private environment JSON, which then could be used in every single of those directories. Goody good. So I have variables, I have requests with payload. I'm nearly happy, but then comes in the collaboration. The collaboration is one of the points I missed the most in the free version of Postman. But as you can see here, those are files. I mean, I can go here and say, as I can do everywhere if I can do it, everywhere I can copy the path reference. And here you see, those are all, just wanted your attention. Okay, those are just normal files, and if I go into one of those, I see those are text files. And what do we nerds love about text files? Well, the content is exactly as we have written it down. That's why I have a lot of discussion why I prefer Obsidian to Notion, even if both are great note-taking tools. But if you export it, you have exactly the data you wrote into it inside the file. And the only thing I don't like here are those lines. Those are the links which are interpreted by Jetbrains automatically to the files I downloaded, and they can also be found. But if I want to do what everybody wants to do with that, I want to git them, of course, put it in my VCS. These links will not work at my coworker's desk because they don't have the file. So my solution would be, I don't work in the old company, so I didn't dig into finish that. But if I would finish it, I would make a little git post hook and ignore all the lines starting with those both arrows, since they are not, or with the spicy braces, since they are not needed. But all the other stuff, of course, you see here can be put into a Git repository, and after that we can go to our config file of JetBrains. In Mac OS X and in Windows, it will be another directory. Google it. No, I really don't know. It must be somewhere in the config, and I'm pretty sure it will be listed in JetBrains. And there you have all the different versions of PHPStorm. And inside those PHPStorm versions, and that is just my attempt, you have always the folder Scratches, and there you can do a symlink. And the good thing is, what's inside of this configuration will, on an update, be persisted. So if you have a new version of Jetbrains, PHPStorm, whatever coming in, you don't have to bother about that because it will be automatically copied. At least that's what I observed, because I didn't have to do the symlinks again. So now in the old company, I had a Git repository and gave it to all my coworkers, because if we work on same projects or on same APIs, which is very probable to happen, they already have the whole collections of my requests. Again? Come on. Well, that was all nice and shiny, but there is other stuff which I liked even more. And the collections, of course, that would be one of the examples is if you go to HubSpot. I mean, those are only very, very standard stuff, configurations or requests or endpoints, but HubSpot has a lot of them. And if you want to grab each and one of them to test something, then you write quite a bit, even in Postman or in other tools. And if you have that, and especially if you have some configured payload which would be customized per client, that could be very handy. And because we have the environment file, we would have a bearer here, and here would be the secret token which would be saved in our environment. Let's put it in the meetup as well. And if we go to meetup, I think it was this one, we can say, or let's do a new environment and call it HubSpot testing. And we would put in the bearer here. And of course, this file we would not commit to our Git repository, and everything is safe and shiny. And then we would exchange this file over an encrypted way, let's say a burning paste bin or something, and the coworker can work on the really same stuff I did, and we don't have to pay for it. Well, we have to pay for Jetbrains, do we? But if we do, we already have it included. Then there was if I tinkered around a bit with it, I saw that there are some really funny things, because the first time I did this, let's go to Lorcana. Who here knows Lorcana? Ah, at least one Disney-proofy guy. So Lorcana is like Magic the Gathering. It's a trading card game, and they have an open API. That's why I use them. And if I grab that, I get an error. Cannot find Lorcana environment. You don't have to need the Lorcana environment. Go away. So try again, Lorcana. Ah, me has no internet. Look at that. Nah, better not. It still wanted here to have something, no environment. That was the real issue, but the host was not known. Let's pray shortly to Alan Turing and Ada Lovelace to make this work. Come on. Nah. I closed myself out from my own network. Ah, xfmop, there it is. So now it should work. And that will take a while. It's quite the response I get there. And you see the thing is turning. But what I wanted to get into is I can directly work with the response. What I did before is I get this nice JSON file. The JSON file can be opened here. I did a new scratch from Node.js, and then I put that into an object and did my data concealing or whatever I wanted to do with it to make some, the chat engine, there it is, even without Postman. But with the HTTP client from Jetbrains, I can do that directly here. And so the syntax is a little bit strange. I have this arrow, go away. And here I have the client response. Here is another error. It's not client, it's response, of course. Then I can go to the body. I can, let's see how it looks like. It is an array of objects. And then I get the first one of those and I can say, yeah, let's give me the classification of that. Now let's see how that turns out. Maybe console log it out, because from this brackets on, we are in JavaScript land again. I should have chosen an endpoint which has a little bit lighter response, but I pay a lot to Swisscom, so I want really to need those bandwidth. So now we have the console, we have the request, where is written how that all looks like. We saw that before, and we have the response handler, and the response handler say storyborn ally. This one is not that useful, but we could there do something like give us the whole length. How many items did I receive? Because that was one of the stuff that interested me in the first place the most. How many of those I get? And since I wrote here, it's an JSON. It automatically transforms that to an object. So I can here do all my fancy, nice array methods, like body, and then I do a filter, as an example, cart, and the cart. I only want to have the cards that, let's say, set number 7. Set number 7 is equal 7, and let's take a look how many of those are inside. Should be around 230-ish or so, if that then even works. 204. And that saved me in the long run a lot of time, because to see the payload is great, but to analyze it mostly takes me to another file. Then I do a scratch, and then I often forget or cleared the whole file, did it again and again, and especially there are endpoints which deliver a little bit more data than this. This took a while, but it's still a file where Jetbrains doesn't say, I want to increment my memory. And I had to work with those files quite a bit. So the first thing I did was I directly put the response and manipulated it to the amount of data I really needed. So I stripped it down before even looked at it. So don't really torture my laptop the whole time. And I think that was quite nice. And yeah, you see a nice reference here. And then in the latest weeks of my work, or the latest months, I had to do an OAuth 2 authentication. And OAuth 2, we all know that that's with the user interaction, but there is also OAuth 2 with 2 legs, so only server to server, which would mean that I would have to write a first request, which then gets me a bearer, and then the second request and all that. But it's even shinier than that, because I have a funny method that says authorization, and I can switch to OAuth and a token. This here it's explicitly in the documentation for OAuth 2, and that's very satisfying. That's also the point. This data must be in a public file, which, why the fuck? But it works there, and it has to be in a very special format. So you have the environment, as in all the other stuff too. Then you have security, then you have auth, and this one you can name again as you wish. But these points all have to be aligned exactly as they are. This can be defined. Security and auth must be in this type. And then here you define all the stuff you need. And what I did not show you, and what I maybe have to cut out in the video, is a working OAuth. And let's try that out. And we see, if we go to the request, so show request, nope, show auth log, and here you see what Jetbrains client did in the background. it retrieved the new OAuth token. The request was sent, the request was received, and the token afterwards was automatically resolved without me having to do 2 requests. And especially cool is if I do this again, and I take another look in the auth log, it says, oh, I'm reusing my existing token. So Jetbrains client is smart enough to know I don't have for each request to grab another token and do extra work. I just go there and use it. Okay. I would have here some other examples, but I'm short on time. I mean, payload, yeah, just to save it. That is also very, very handy. I can not only, like here, go through all the data in the payload, I can also save it for later. And we try it out here with this one. I think here it is already finished. Yeah, here I go and I take an image of a random card. It is quite small, isn't it? The same as I did before, but now I go into the client, and the client is the whole application of the curl replacement, basically. So the whole HTTP client of Jetbrains. I can say global set, then I set an image URL, and I take a random one, and the next step I haven't even made, so let's do it again. We make grab the image or download the image. Here I make a GET request, and the GET request, since the URL is written here, I can say image. It says it won't work, but let's try if it works. So this one worked, and oh, it indeed worked. And that's also a nice thing. It downloads my data. It shows them to me if it has a parser for that given file type. And of course, if you want to see those files, where do I have that project? 25. Here is, no. A little bit bigger. We leave that alone with bigger. In the folder where your project is or where your idea points to base URL, you can go to .idea, where everything from idea is, and there in HTTP requests, and all the data you saved in this project is written here. So you have all the data, you can delete them, do whatever you want with it, but it is indeed written. Yeah, also helped me quite a bit, and it's funny if you want to play around with other applications or other APIs. What do we have here? Testing stuff. That is also very important to me because I didn't only work with HubSpot and I would say really well documented and keep the same way APIs, but I worked with other companies which created those APIs, and they can from time to time switch. I don't know if it's time and space continuum which breaks there, but there are people working there like we are people, and they can decide that they remove an attribute or rename an attribute in a little bit, and in this case my DTO won't work, which I used before for that. And even that we can cover, and that I prepared here, because the HTTP client has a testing suite included. And that is also quite nice. So if the first thing I can do every time is I test an endpoint, the response status 200 is it reachable, and here I check my structure. Here I go to the objects endpoint, which is also from my API. And if I go here in my API routing list, we see this will be returned, an array of objects, and there is name, last name, and created at. And now I can go through this stuff, and I have here the new tab tests, and that will show me, nice. Here tests all worked, and of course to see if I would have in my DTO the parameter or the attribute, come on, age, because I need that. I can try that again. and I see directly, one of my tests didn't pass. And if I would know about that earlier, indeed, I only discovered that during my research for this talk to have a little bit more meat on the bone, which was too much meat because pizza is already there, but I try to be quick. And I saw, if I would have known that for some of the projects with some of the companies I work with, I would for sure have inserted that, because DTOs, I really like the saloon to DTO to repository pattern for working with APIs. And if my DTOs don't work anymore because I did nothing wrong, but nobody did in IT ever, I could at least check if my software will still work. Well, where do we have my README? Here we go. And exporting to curl. That is also cool, because if you want to use exactly the same stuff you have needed here, even with APIs with environment stuff in it, let's say here with the base URL, I can right-click. I'm not sure if you can do that on macOS by now. Can you right-click now? Is it possible? Sorry, I stopped that.
It's a paid upgrade.
Huh?
Paid upgrade.
Okay, subscription-based. Cool. You can copy, pasted selection, convert to curl, and copy. And then you can say with which environment do you want to use that. You can grab that. You can go to your console, and you have it here. And if you want to live a little bit more fancy, you can directly pipe it into a file. If it would work, yeah, you could do that. You know what I mean? Pipe, file, and you would also have it if you are not on your machine, but on your server where you don't have the Jetbrains HTTP client, as an example. If you have a big payload and a quite complex, let's say, string combination and a lot of headers, that could be very handy, because, I mean, curl is cool, but look at this. Do you want to write it by your own? Yeah, you get used to it, I know, but no, this one is way easier and more repeatable, because that is in my file, that is in my VCS. I am happy with this one. Good. And more. Jetbrains HTTP client has also a CLI tool, which I didn't try it, but it looked pretty good on the video. It has also a Docker image, which is also quite cool, especially because we could use that in GitHub Actions, as an example, in replacement of curl or whatever else we would need. And the really important thing here is the testing phase is cool. I used it a lot to fire against my own stuff if I'm developing something. And there, of course, you can do it test-driven with past shoot at your endpoints. That is cool, but if I just want to try some webhooks for my GitLab or GitHub stuff, that is faster, and I don't want to have everything in my code base I just use for testing, especially if I want to see how data looks from third parties. And for third parties, that is way more interesting. If I have a pipeline, and I do exactly this DTO stuff in my pipeline to see if my new software that will ship still complies with the API provided by somebody else. And not only during my shipping, but I could say my trigger is not a push nor a merge. My trigger is scheduled. So I order GitHub or GitLab or Bitbucket, whatever you use, to, let's say, every day at 2 a.m. check, is the API still compliant with my DTOs? Nice. And there is something else I also discovered during research, and there is an endpoint tab. Nope. But we have got a lot of stickers and also T-shirts from Jetbrains, but we didn't get this one. And that's quite hot. I mean, this one is that's a Python Django project, and you have a list with all the endpoints provided in the API, and it is cool. It may be a little bit related to the software behind. I don't know the magic Jetbrains does there or idea, but yeah, I want it. And maybe we can deploy a message, because it's on the IntelliJ documentation, and PHPStorm is IntelliJ. But it's not yet available. I also checked my versions. It's not in PHPStorm now. Maybe it comes somewhere, it would be cool. Yeah, I think that's quite everything I've got. Yeah, it was useful for me to be really quick with API requests. One more thing. It's not only based on scratches. You can also put those in your project. So if you have a testing suite, not for your own endpoints, but for other endpoints, where you maybe not want to shoot to with pest or something, but just want to check if they are still sane or did something creative, then you could do it there. Or also for some low resource testing where you don't want to fire up whole pest and everything, just a little client working his way through your endpoints and all that, that would be a possibility. Keep in mind those secret files here, the environments, don't put them into your version controlling. I haven't checked to see if I can infuse them if I use the Docker container with Git secrets or GitHub secrets, because that would be a really cool thing. You're really welcome to try it out. Yeah, I was impressed by that. I hope you are too, or at least it could be helpful for you. That was everything. Thank you very much and enjoy the pizza.
Are there any questions to Philipp and this magical talk? Yes.
So you showed how to manipulate the response and like extract your own data. Does it also work on the already saved payloads?
No. It's just for the stuff that comes in and is filled in. Where did we have that? For that lifecycle. And here, during the response, it is filled with that, but in the next lifecycle, but in the next request lifecycle, it's filled again. Or
you can't reuse that already saved data.
Oh, of course I can. They are all there. But then I have to copy them. But there is not a variant where I could say, give me this and do shit with it. Yeah. That is not possible now. Well, I mean, it's a JSON file. You can write a node script and use that as input. That would still work.
Any other question? If not, I will do it quickly. Thanks, Philipp, for the talk.